All right, just start off real quick. Just past game, obviously disappointed, frustrated, a lot of those things. Reality is we need to play better, need to coach better. There's no question about it. We got to do a much better job collectively within our building. You only get so many opportunities to show your stuff, and we got to do better with it. And that includes these next 3 weeks. We got Houston this week, and we're looking forward to playing this game. I think obviously, you're not going to be in a bowl game this year, which is very disappointing. We can't stand that. But we're still trying to go win this game this weekend. We're trying to go win these last three. We want to finish on a strong note. We're playing for these seniors that have been in this program for many years and want to send them out the right ways, things that they'll remember, and not just the bad things, so they have something great to remember as we finish out this season. So as you think about, playing, I know people talk about, well, do you play a bunch of young guys and all this and that? Well, we will play some young guys. There's no question about that. We did last week. We'll continue to do some of that. But we're still at the same time trying to win the game. So we're going to put the guys out there that will help us win and do the best job that we can do in all three phases. And, it's crazy to think about this year. I look back on it and we're outgaining, opponents. I think 6 out of the 9 opponents, and 4 of them over 100 yards. Offensively, I think we're 23rd in the country right now in offense, 6th in the country in rushing. Defensively, our havoc rate on defense is top 5 in the country. I mean, we've done some really nice things on that side of the ball as well. Obviously, the negative is turnover margin. I think if you had to point to something, that'd be one of the biggest things I think I'd point to. Last week we were -2. And and that was a team that had been turning the ball over this year. And but having said that, in those games, we're losing turnover margin, but we're still right there with a chance to go win. And so if we can clean up some of those things, but it comes back to being disciplined. That's what I mentioned in the game at the end of the game last night or Saturday night, was being very undisciplined. The things we're going to continue to work on, it being a disciplined football team and cleaning up some of those things. And and I think I emphasize it. Big time to our players and our team. You're playing Houston this week, a team that moved up just like we did. Had a big win last week against Baylor. Went for 2 and got it to win the game. And I think they certainly have some talented players. Starting with their quarterback, I think Donovan Smith is a really good player. He's got great size, big. I didn't realize how big he was. He can run too. He can throw. Completing 66% of his passes, which I think is really, really good, and a couple of dynamic receivers I think that are awesome players, and in the returning game. I think the one number 2, I think he's got 2 touchdown kickoff returns for touchdowns. Does an outstanding job. Punt returner is really good. Number 15, he's a good player as a DB. And then number 9 leads the Big 12 in sacks. He's got 8 sacks. He's a big time edge rusher off the outside. It looks like they've tweaked their defense. I think early on in the season was giving up some yards and some points and that type of thing. But the last 3 weeks they've really tightened that up a little bit better and played more sound. Took Texas all the way to the end. Of course, beat Baylor. So I think they're playing much better on that side of the ball as well. But I just open up with questions.
I ran some numbers this week. I know you like when I do that.
Oh, I can't wait to hear it.
You've only had 13 snaps with the lead on offense in Big 12 play. For an offense that wants to run the ball and control the clock, how difficult does that make the entire operation that you can't seem to play? Yeah. Even when you get the lead, it vanishes.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it'd be a lot better, I think, if we had the lead more, because it plays more into the hands of what you want to do: run the football, control the clock. Here's the other thing I think is that, and I think I've mentioned this, but we have not started a drive on the plus 50 in since the first half of Oklahoma, 5.5 weeks. I don't know if anybody in the country has that's happened to. And so, yeah, you're right. I mean, you're playing from behind, so it makes it a lot more difficult to do what we really want to do. At the same time, we still have been running the ball, at some really good clips, and but it would be so much better, if you're getting the lead, you're controlling the clock. And then you're getting the ball back on defense. And what that does, it forces the opposing teams to start forcing the ball more. Therefore, it creates more turnovers and more sacks, because now we feel like, okay, they got to throw it more. We can get to the quarterback, and I think that's one thing where we've been hurt on. We've only got 4 interceptions this year, which is the last in the Big 12. And part of that is because they don't feel pressured to throw the ball late in the games, when a lot of times you can get those interceptions and picks. And And I feel like, you start pressing a little bit, which we've had to do at times, and I think that's where we've got in trouble. So, yeah, I mean, it's a good point. I mean, that's, hopefully, we can continue to work and get those leads and get ahead of the games so that plan can really help you, obviously, more than hurt you.
Your job's obviously not easy. How do you evaluate and figure out what to do when you're thinking of redshirting?
Yeah.
But we're in an era when kids are jumping all over the place, and are you sometimes saving someone who might be off?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. It's particularly this era, in the transfer era, and a lot of these guys when they come in, I mean, they want to play right now, and some of them can't. It's hard for them to see, why they're not playing right now, and so we try to have conversations. We try to keep the open dialogue, open line of communications with our players to say, listen, you're going to be a really, really good player, because nowadays these young people, all of them, I got 3 kids, they want instant gratification. They don't want to have to sometimes work on that, for a year and a half. I mean, I've seen some great players, some players that are drafted that maybe they took 2 years before they even started, and then all of a sudden now they developed and they're really, really good players. And but it's having a little bit of patience and continue to work. But some that are not trying to hear that. Some are wanting to play now. Some that you end up redshirting. You think about it as coaches, I'm thinking, man, we don't want to redshirt this guy for somebody else. Because now he may, after a year or two, may decide to go play somewhere else, and that's not good. So there's a fine line there. But I think, that if you want to build your program right, I think if the players are not 100% ready, then you don't play them. You end up redshirting them. If some are ready, well, you try to play them in 4 games to get them some time in the game, get them some experience, because I do believe that next spring and that next off season, they're going to have something to build off of. They're going to have something that coach off of as well as coaches. So I do think that is very beneficial. And then there's others that, man, you just want to go ahead and play, and because they're good enough to help you, even if it is at a limited role.
You said on Saturday you were going to come in on Sunday and work with whoever was there in terms
Yeah.
of the discipline. What was
Yeah.
Sunday like? Was there some push and pull, or was it kind of a better day?
No, I mean, they all showed up. And that was good. That was positive. But it was a heated meeting, the team meeting, and and I think several coaches spoke up in the meeting, and and players. I think, listen, 85-90% of our players, man, are 100% doing exactly what they need to be doing. But then some are not. And so it's the key is, and this is always going to be the deal. You get the coaches, we have to do the best job we can to get everybody pulling in the same direction, doing the things that it takes to win and to win games and to play disciplined football. And you know what? But when you don't, there's consequences. God, you're going to get called out. You're going to get coached hard. And so that's what it was. There's a lot of that. And I think to be able to point that out in a team meeting, in a team setting, so everybody can see it. You put it all out there on the table, so we all know what we're working with, and we all know how we need to get better. Because maybe you're a guy who hadn't made those mistakes, but you're hearing what the mistakes he's made. But I don't want to make them. So they need to hear that. It's not just a one-on-one conversation. I mean, the whole team needs to hear it, and that's kind of where we had. And it was a really good meeting, and the guys are are coming out hard and trying to continue to compete. I thought Sunday night was that way of practice, and I think today will be those guys will come out and compete hard and want to have a great practice today.
New coaching staff and 20-plus transfers this season. What have been some of the biggest challenges throughout these first 9 weeks?
Well, I think, probably the biggest challenge is when you're coming in as a new staff, you don't truly know what you got until you start playing and you start getting in these games and you start figuring out, okay, well, we're deficient here, we're okay here, those type things. And as you continue to play, and then also you don't know in the league, how are these other teams? What are these teams looking like? How are these teams built? What are the things that they're trying to do to can win championships? And as you go through the league, you learn a lot about those things. And so, the challenges, particularly, I think we've talked a lot about this in the secondary. And then you lose a guy like Sammy, who's arguably your best corner, best DB, and you don't have him out there. And then now you're having to play some young guys and guys that even older guys, but they hadn't played a whole lot, but now they're having to go out there and play. And so those type things are challenging, I think, and trying to figure out the best way to help our team. At the same time, put our guys in position so they can make plays and not get exposed, so to speak. I mean, so we're trying to put them in position to make plays, and that's been the challenge, really all year. And I think we've done a really good job in a lot of things, and some poor job in some other things that's really cost us.
Speaking of young DBs, Kalen Carroll got the start. Probably good that we didn't notice him
That's
much
right.
on that tape.
You're
But
100%.
what did his tape look like?
He did. He played very, very solid. Obviously, is the best that he played. I mean, he's really basically 2 games, I guess. Oklahoma State and Central Florida. So, but he did play well. He had a couple knockdown, batted balls. The guys were there, and I thought he played with a lot more poise. He didn't really get rattled, which was great to see. I mean, he's a freshman, and that was great to see out of that, and continue to build off of that. I think the biggest thing that as a coach that I want to see, and I'm sure everybody else wants to see, is our guys staying on top of receivers. I mean, we've gotten in trouble this year because we're letting some of these receivers get behind us, and these quarterbacks are good, man, that we're playing, and they make you pay. But staying on top, getting on top of the receivers, and not giving up those big plays is the key to not giving up points. And we've done a poor job with that all year. And and I thought he did a very good job with that in that regard on Saturday.
With no bowl game, how do you keep the guys playing for the front of the jersey and not the back?
Yeah.
When in fact they kind of need to play a little bit for the name on the back because their careers are up in the air too.
Well, I think number one, we like what I mentioned earlier, we want to send the seniors out on a high note. I mean, we don't want to just continue to limp through the rest of the 3 games. We want to go out there and play our best ball. I thought DP played his best game Saturday. I thought Kalen Carroll played his best game. I think Braden Smith played his best game. Ryan Montgomery played his best game. So we want to see that. We want to see guys that really show up. And at the end of the season, play your best game right now. Let's go out and do the very best we can, and to send these seniors out on a high note. And I think a lot of time, pride comes into play. I mean, you just want to go out there and lay down. I mean, we're not doing that. We're not built that way. So I think we got a lot to continue to play for. And I know, in general, people say, well, you don't have anything to play for. Man, every time we step on the field, we got to have something to play for. And we have not played great, this year, complete games. And so let's strive to do that. And I think we got enough guys in that room that have enough pride about themselves. They want to go out and do that.
Back to my original point, on a positive note, is it even more impressive what you've been able to do in the running game that you haven't been in a situation to play with the lead and you're still rushing the ball the way you are?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, I think so. And if you go back and you look at the last several games where they got a lot of people in that box, and we're still able to run the football. 9 guys in the box, and I think credit to our O-line, our tight ends, our backs, continue to hit it in there, and making those plays. I thought, and I really did. I thought Saturday we moved the ball well. I mean, minus the 2 turnovers, we played maybe as efficiently offensively as we've played all year. I think we threw the ball. Passing was the second most passing yards that Central Florida had given up, and we still rushed for 249 or something, right around 250 yards. I mean, we moved the ball really, really good. Minus those 2 turnovers, because if you get those 2 turnovers, you take those away, we're down there close to red zone, inside there. You're looking at some points, hopefully there. We did score in our red zone this past weekend, so you come away with some points there, you come away with the win probably, and get a lot of momentum, because one of them was right before the half, where we felt like we can get some points going into halftime.
You mentioned their big wins. What in the world did Kansas State do to them to shut them out? That seems mind-boggling.
They played really good defense, really good defense. And the thing about it, I think, the quarterback that day, if you go back and look at his stats, that's not the way he's been playing throughout the season. In that particular game, it was less than 100 yards passing. And, they obviously want to throw the football. So I think Kansas State's defense did a great job. And then offensively, man, extremely efficient. Extremely efficient. They were good on 3rd downs. They were able to run the football and control the game that way. And they got up on them, and then they just continued to pour it on. Conversely, Texas got up on them, because Texas was up 21-0. And then Houston hit a couple of big plays and got right back in that game, and then it came down to the wire, in the 4th quarter. So, but I think, I remember Coach Holberson mentioned that, that's what a Big 12 team looks like, after they played Kansas State. And Kansas State's coached well, and man, they're big. They're a big, strong, physical football team, and I think that's why they're able to do that, for the 41-0 maybe.
Obviously, the goal is to end 5-7 for you guys, but what does the end of the season look like in terms of, it's a successful end of the season to where you can start the offseason on the right foot instead of the wrong foot? Is it a specific characteristic you guys can progress on or develop?
You know, you just want to continue. You want to continue to improve and do the things it takes to win the games. You know, we're going to play, you know, 3 teams that are very, very solid football teams. We know that. 2 of them on the road. You know, so obviously challenging in these last 3. But if we can continue to grow as a football team and get better, and you know, I talked about those individuals, you know, a while ago. But if we can get a lot more other guys, individuals playing their best games, then we're gonna have a chance to win. That's what we want to see. Continue to see growth out of these guys. You know, we got a lot of guys coming back on offense, and actually several on defense as well. But you know, continue to get growth out of them guys, and that, you know, as good as you can finish, that's going to propel you into the off season. I've already been meeting with Coach Nico. We got a great plan for when we get back in January for our guys in the off season. Our recruiting staff's done an unbelievable job of securing high school guys that are coming in here. Half of them are coming in January. You know, and then of course we all know here in about 2.5 weeks this portal's going to open back up, and we're going to be able to try to fill some gaps in as well there. So it's going to be on, you know, when December hits. You know, as far as recruiting goes, and you know, so I mean, we got a great plan for that. So I think all that stuff, and over these next 2.5 weeks and playing these football games, if we can, you know, get some great momentum headed into December, obviously that's going to be huge for us as we head into the all season. That it?
Any questions for Coach?